All right, Luke, another Sunday, another episode of Talkin' Lost. But in addition to Lost, we had a big announcement this week. Marvel, man, we really got to stop discounting these guys when it comes to not their movies, but their ability to build up hype and get people excited for their movies, because that still, I would say they are still at the top of their game when it comes to that. The movies themselves, maybe not so much, but they are at the top of their game when it comes to hyping up movies. We had how long was it? 5.5 hour, like 7 hour long stream where they were basically just slowly panning back and revealing all the cast names on the backs of a bunch of chairs to reveal the initial cast, because this will not be the final cast for sure, of the pending Avengers Doomsday, which is set to be released in a year from now. So we're going to get through Lost, and then we're going to get to that. But do you have anything you want to say before we get rolling?
No, I was one of those many millions watching. Like it was during a lecture, so I just had it on the side of my screen. Every 12 minutes, okay, I've put a stopwatch on. So like, okay, the time's approaching. Okay, and there's the chairs moving, and then
yep.
Boom.
This is really like, everybody, the chair's moving, and like the whole class goes silent as they're waiting for like the next reveal. Then it's like, you know what they need to do? They need to do one of those, like, you know how they have those like crazy reactions to, like, you know, those movie moments where it's like everybody in that one bar that just goes nuts, and then but like they swap it out for different scenes in different movies. They need to do that, but with like the chair reveal, and just have it on a loop for like 5 hours. That would be hilarious.
Well, that was me when Ian McKellen came up. Was like,
true. Well, we're gonna get into all of that, but first, Talkin' Lost. Stay tuned. All right, so Luke, this is starting to become a little bit of a trend for us. You and me not necessarily agreeing on something. So we're on season 2, episode 6 of Bandit. I would say that enough of the groundwork has been laid as far as the establishing for the season. You know, everything with the hatch, Michael Sawyer and Jin getting back to the island, meeting the tail end survivors, you know, kind of starting to once again amp up the threat that is the others. And it's kind of fitting on this. I guess kind of what's interesting is that we have an episode, 2 episodes from now, called Collision. And But it's kind of fitting that this episode ends the way that it does, where this episode is kind of the culmination of everything that's happened, not only since the beginning of this season, but also really the end of season 1, where you have these 2 dueling storylines, kind of our main survivors on the beach dealing with the fallout of blowing open the hatch, and Michael, Sawyer, and Jin as they, and everything that's happened to them since they departed the island from the raft. They encountered the others snatched Walt, they blew up the raft. Michael Sawyer and Jin wound up on a complete opposite end of the island, discovered this entire other group of survivors from the plane that they didn't even realize had survived, that it had no interaction with. Much smaller, much more hostile, much has been more susceptible to attack in the past from the others. And so now they've been kind of trekking across the island, trying to make it back to their main group of survivors. Meanwhile, with our main group of survivors, we actually got something that I didn't think that we were ever going to get, which is not only like, I guess, character development for Shannon, finally actually starting to, show her to be more than just, the kind of the shallow, useless person that we'd all gotten to know her as throughout the course of the first season, where she was kind of like the butt of the joke and the punching bag for, what's it called? For kind of almost the entirety of the first season. Then this episode, the season started off by making you think that something interesting was going to happen with her kind of like seeing hallucinations of Walt, speaking some weird, strange language. She at first she doesn't really know what to make of it, but then after her son and Claire found the bottle with the messages in it last episode, she starts to think that it's an omen, a warning of some kind, that something bad is happening. We get this backstory that actually kind of does almost make us feel for her, in the sense of, okay, so she just was kind of like an aimless, directionless kid who was trying to figure her out. And just as we're finally starting to actually feel some sympathy for her, spoiler alert, didn't think we were going to get another main character death this soon in the season. She dies. Like, just boom, done. Shannon's gone. Like, that's it. Bye-bye. No more. We'll get to how that happens once we break down this episode. But Luke, so walk me through your thoughts. Obviously, again, unlike Boone's death, which was kind of cataloged, kind of, I would say, an episode or 2 out roughly. You could make the argument that it was hinted at in his solo episode last season before, you had the inevitable plane crash, which led to an entire episode of Jack trying to save him. But this time, it's just kind of like a surprise out of nowhere, boom, kind of a thing. A surprise ending to a character that, again, we had only, I feel like, just started to scratch the surface of, getting you attached and then killing them off. It's a move that was more synonymous with HBO at the time than network. So walk me through your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so obviously the first hint is guest starring Ian Somerhalder. Oh, it's a Shannon flashback episode. Great. It didn't fill me with excitement. But again, it is a decent flashback character building. Like you said, she's this aimless kid, and that kind of explains how she kind of just wanders around on the island during the first season, just kind of letting others do the thing for her. And she eventually gets with Saeed. Saeed builds her a big fancy tent at the start of this episode. But almost in a way, she's kind of the opposite to Kate, where Kate needs Sawyer on the island to be like somewhat compelling, but then Shannon is more compelling without Boone.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting opposite dynamic that I guess we're not going to get any more of.
Yeah.
We got everything. We got everything we will in this episode.
It's like we wasted 3 backstory episodes with Kate last season. We got 1 Shannon episode. It was the most compelling backstory or anything with her that we've gotten from this entire island, and now she's gone. Apparently, it was all we needed.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, this is kind of an easygoing episode. We're gonna get some good flashbacks on the island. There's little, nothing much happens on the island. The others are just not the others, but the back end survivors.
The tail end
survivors. They're just slowly making their way to the island. Maybe they'll get there in an episode or 2. Nope, they got there this episode.
Yeah, they got there this episode.
Charlie and Claire are doing babysitting roles. There's a great moment, great trope of Locke finding out something about another character through another character. That character didn't know it was significant.
Yes. Great storytelling.
Age-old storytelling. I'll never get sick of that. And then she just dies.
Yeah. Poof. Out of nowhere. Yeah. So I don't know. So it's interesting. So walk me through. I guess for lack of a better reason, it's kind of another, I guess, difference between the two of us in the sense of where I've seen the show before. I know what's going to happen. I've kind of already formed this relationship with everything. So for me, it's it's one of those instances that twist endings would do. I would say with that batch of movies that you got between the late 90s and the early 2000s, your Usual Suspects, your Fight Clubs, your Mementos, your Sixth Senses, where you would have these movies that would end with these crazy twist endings, and it would make you go back and rewatch the movie, and you would get almost like an entirely different spec where you're going into this episode not knowing at all how it's going to end. And I'm going into this being like, oh, this is the one where Shannon gets killed unexpectedly at the end. I am a little bit torn in hindsight because a lot's happened both with me personally and in the world since this episode aired, where, again, at the time, obviously, when this episode aired, you probably could hear Lost fans around the world breathing a sigh of relief, being like, thank fucking God, we don't have to spend any more time with this useless character. But obviously, and this is a thing that I saw brought up in Deadpool 2, the idea of fridging a character, right? Kind of, and specifically when that happens with female characters, specifically when female characters are often killed off as a means of motivating the lead male character, where essentially what you had here was this entire episode kind of building up to Shannon, making you think that Shannon was going to have a bigger role in the show going forward. And then all that ends up, especially with the hallucinations about Walt, and is that going to tie into maybe Walt's future in the island, and what does that have to do with the others? Especially since we reiterate that at first Shannon is the only one seeing Walt, so she's having this back and forth of and that ties into her flashback as well thematically. The fact that she always felt abandoned by everybody around her. Her flashback starts with the revelation of her father dying, which kind of leaves her with nothing. It's revealed that kind of her stepmother, Boone's mother, who she married, kind of stipulated that she wasn't going to receive any money because she kind of had to figure out her shit on her own. And it shows that it's one of those situations where she was trying, and yeah, she's an aimless, directionless kid, but it was a thing of where kind of all the people who could have helped her kind of, either moved on or ran out of chance or ran out of kind of patience for her. It's shown that she didn't really have the relationship with her stepmother that she did with her dad. And it puts her in a tough spot. You start to understand a little bit more about why she is the way that she is, why she's acted the way that she's acted before. And, it adds a little bit more humanity, a little bit more pathos to her. The fact that, she's not just this rich trust fund kid that we'd assumed her to be after the first season. And then, so you have all this development for her. ends up resulting in is her dying as a means of, creating friction between Saeed and the Talon survivors, who have already shown to be a lot more hostile, a lot more weary, a lot more kind of like aged, kind of exemplifying a lot more of the Lord of the Flies esque. Have you, into that the first season, where, and we see a little bit more of that as well, where Michael kind of tells us, like, look, we understand that, like, you're a little bit more hostile, but if we're going to keep following your orders, bar none, we need to know a little bit more. We need to know exactly what happened, guys, that made it so that you guys are this scared of the others. It's like, 'cause we've had interactions with others before, but nothing like this. Like, absolutely, like, nothing like this. So, yeah, what did you think of that real quick about kind of Ana Lucia and her treatment of them, and like we start to get like a little bit more as far as like what it is that the others have done that's so damaging to this particular group of the Oceanic Flight 815 survivors, right? It's 815, yeah, 815.
I think you were cutting out a bit there. Yeah, I don't know if it's on my end or your end, but I caught most of it. I caught the important stuff.
As long as you caught the important stuff.
Just to tack on the Shannon bit a bit. I'm now looking at like, okay, how didn't I see it coming? She's getting all this development suddenly, and then I'm like, oh, of course, makes perfect sense. Like they make you care about the character for the first time, and then just take her away. So, in terms of Ana Lucia just point blank shooting her, yeah, I think it's just a overly cautious approach because obviously they've been through so much worse than the front end survivors, and I think we might see that in the next episode. I think that's what the Netflix description alluded to, and how that's gonna create probably some tension between the front and back end survivors. So it's just I want to watch the next episode. This one was like, okay, I didn't love this episode, but I love the ending. I want to watch the next one. So, and ultimately, that's what the goal of each episode is, I think.
Yes, I would tend to agree. Yeah. And then specifically also just about like, when Michael and Sawyer as well, kind of, reestablishing relationships with them, being like Sawyer, Sawyer's infection is not good, as you see in this episode. He passes out, he can barely walk. It's getting to the point where even Mr. Echo, it's one of those things where, again, this very big, very massive, very imposingly threatening figure, and with the heart of gold, where he started to see, again, it's like tying us into maybe what's been going on with these Talon survivors, where it's like, okay, these guys have been through hell. These guys have been through the ringer. But like, they're still kind of the opinion, except for Ana Lucia, where they're like, we don't leave a man behind, because Libby, Echo, and even Bernard are like, yeah, we, they're like something, they're like, we can't leave Sawyer behind. And then their fifth member, I don't even remember what her name is because we never see her again. Their fifth member just disappears.
I had to rewind. Like, okay, there was a fifth member.
Yes.
No, I can't find her. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's just say she was there. I believe that.
Yeah, but then they're like, wait, where is she? Again, it's like it's an insignificant character. She was just there in order to add on to it. Like, she ultimately is meaningless. I don't think we ever even see her again once we actually see the others this season. And fair warning, we will finally see the others this season. But yeah. So again, it's kind of interesting again how we've been following these two storylines, and again, that's kind of another part of the impressive nature of this episode is the fact that we've been following these two storylines for 5 episodes now, and it's very impressive how, again, we're just expecting that it's going to be a little while longer, because I think by this point we've been trained to think, the mix of the two storylines won't happen until like about halfway through. But here we are, episode 6, and they happen in a way that you are not expecting at all. And it creates for, again, what is probably going to be some interesting storytelling going forward ultimately. And I think kind of what's even more surprising about this episode is that it's even more of a setup episode than you thought. You're spending how much time with these characters over the course of the last 4 or 5 episodes with, again, just, kind of only giving you a little piece per episode plot-wise. And now you're like, oh, shit. It's one of those things where it's like, kind of tying into the age-old network TV model of, okay, like getting you hooked for each of the next episode. How do we keep our audience coming back for the next episode each? And man, there was nothing like where, again, you're there in the jungle, Saeed cradling Shannon's body, bloodied. the rain pouring, mud everywhere, Anna Lucia holding the gun, Echo, and then Saeed. I don't even know if Saeed saw Michael, Jin, and Sawyer, but it's the first time that they've seen them, and I don't remember how many days it's been since they left initially, but it's been like at least a couple days, possibly almost a week or 2 weeks, something like that. So it's been a little bit amount of time, and already you're just set up for like, oh man, what's gonna happen next?
I think it was just way too shell shocked to have any sort of reaction. But if I'm looking at it from like a writer perspective, I'm trying to write something. I'm learning about the rules of storytelling and whatnot. I think they needed more in some kind of interior conflict between the survivors. So I think they're gonna get that from Charlie eventually, and now from Anna Lucia. So there's gonna be this, like, you have the others. That's the exterior conflict, but to keep the engagement, keep the story interesting, you need some interior conflict. So you throw in a wrench in the works, like Anna Lucia, to spice things up, if you will.
Yes,
and,
indeed.
And then that gets like your jacks and your locks involved, and then everything's great.
Yes, exactly. And it's funny that you brought that up about the others as well, where again, it is kind of interesting where rather than going directly into the others for season 2, Lindelof makes the choice to really wait until season 3 to break down the others and and what they're all about and kind of their contribution and their role in the island, and rather than he's like, so it's interesting where he could have easily done that for season 2, but instead he was like, wait, there's no, he has the genius foresight to remember, wait, the plane broke in half when it landed. You have to assume that if this many people survive from the main section, you have to assume that a decent chunk of people survive from the tail end section too, and how he decides to kind of bring that in. But also he has to take into account everything that's happened on the island since they landed. I don't remember how many days it's been, but I think they said it's been like a little over a month or something that they've been there. And so a lot of stuff has happened, and it's like, oh, what would happen if they, if they landed a little bit closer to where the others are on the island, and how that would kind of influence them, and then once we get into Anna Lucia, but also how you mentioned Charlie as well, where, again, we've already got a lot of stuff that's been set up with these first 6 episodes, the hatch, the others, the tail end survivors, but we forget, and it's such a, I guess, small storyline, but not really, that I forgot about it as well. Charlie's heel turn that I forgot happens this season, where you have Charlie, right? Drug addict, punk rocker, kind of a mess, kind of a degenerate, had a lot of good things going for him, kind of screwed himself up. That all of a sudden finds himself stranded on this deserted island. Who even knows if they're even like on the same dimensional plane, right, as the rest of everything else. And he's kind of, given a second chance in a way that he was not expecting, in a way that I don't think anybody was expecting, in the sense of where he has a chance to finally get himself clean and get himself redeem himself for his past actions. There's an episode that's going to come in season 3 as well called Greatest Hits, which is basically where Charlie's kind of looking back and reflecting on the best things that have happened to him in his life, because he feels like there just really hasn't been that many great things. And what's so interesting is how Lindelof is able to take kind of, that character of Charlie and give him this really awesome kind of 3-act structure, where first season was getting to know him, and now we're seeing a little bit of a descent, where at the end of the first season, when Locke and Boone discovered the smuggler's plane, which they found it was filled with Virgin Marys full of heroin, and then Saeed unintentionally reveals that to Charlie when they're going to try and rescue baby Aaron. And so now, as we've seen in the last couple episodes, Charlie's carrying around that statue. Him and Claire are having problems putting Aaron down, getting him to sleep. Locke comes in, of course, pulls a little bit of his Locke magic. I don't even know what Locke's been doing since they basically set up the shifts at the hatch and everything. He's kind of just back to doing his own Locke thing, and is quickly able to help get Aaron to calm down. Throws in his usual Locke words of wisdom, and and then Claire happens to mention, oh yeah, Charlie's been carrying around a Virgin Mary statue, and Locke, knowing what that means, is like, huh, funny how that works. And then that leads to the conversation that the two of them have while playing. What are they playing? Dice. I wasn't paying attention to it.
Was it backgammon?
It was backgammon. Okay, I wasn't sure if it was backgammon or not. I assumed it was.
I've never played it, but it looked familiar.
Yeah, because that's what him and Walt were playing. Were playing in season 1 when they were first getting to know each other. But so, what do you think? The beginning of Charlie's heel turn journey. Again, another storyline that I am familiar with that you will come to see over the course of this season. So, what are you thinking so far of it?
Yeah, I think it makes sense more than anything, because you don't want these heel turns to just be out of nowhere, like your Daenerys. I think, yes, eventually she would have gone Mad Queen
Yes.
mode, but not like just like that. But this one, they're really taking their time with it. They're setting up. He's getting a little he's up hostile to people. He's carrying around this heroin. Like when's he gonna use it? Is he using it?
Right.
We don't know everything. So yeah, I'm just excited to see what consequences his heel turning will have on the rest of the team. Like, and how does Anna Lucia come into that? How does Charlie?
Exactly.
Charlie's very like the way he was with Rousseau at the finale of season 1. He was very
Yeah.
agitated about
Yes.
everything.
Very high. Very high strung.
Yeah. So how does he react to the back end survivors? And just to touch on the back end survivors, it's such a good retcon because it changes this thing, but it doesn't change anything that we've set up in season 1. Like
Right.
it doesn't change anything about the characters there. It's just a separate thing that you didn't know about, but there's no reason for it not to have happened.
Exactly.
So.
It's adding more to the world is what it is.
Yeah.
It's filling out your story world, which is where, again, where it's that thing where when writers are in the room, they kind of take a step back, they kind of examine, be like, okay, what do we have so far? What are some of the elements that we initially set up that just to kind of get the story for it? What are some other things that we can kind of throw into play in order to give the story a new edge? And that's exactly what it is. It's kind of Brandon Sanderson. I was watching a video where he was talking about this, which is where he was talking about how one of the biggest kind of hurdles that writers have when it comes to first starting out is to get a little bit too involved in the world building and not enough of the story building. He's like, focus on the story that you have and building that out, and your world will develop as that goes on. Where again, so we have the island, we have the plane, we have the others, kind of our 3 pinpoints to kind of start from. And then they're going back to the beginning and be like, oh, tail broken in half. Oh, whole other potential for a group of survivors. We could use that as like kind of a comparison to, this entire first season that we spent building up this group of survivors and everything going on there. So it is really interesting how, again, it's little by little, piece by piece, they're able to build out the mythology as well and really make this into more than, again, just what it was initially pitched as, which was Survivor, but with a dramatic twist, and potentially some supernatural and sci-fi leaning. So really, once again, if there's one thing that I'll close this episode on, it's that I really have to give props to how, again, with a season that we thought we were getting to know, they're still able to throw some curveballs at us and also, really completely shift things around while also still maintaining the spirit of the show. The biggest difference that we noticed between season 1 and season 2 is that season 2 has become a lot more plot focused, with the introduction of the hatch, but the fact that they're still going out of their way to still incorporate and really focus on these character elements in terms of how important they are to the story and pushing it forward. It's really, really something, honestly. And I feel like it's something that a lot of Lost fans maybe forget about when they kind of get obsessed, when they kind of dive knee deep into the nitty gritty as far as oh, what's the hatch? Oh, what do the numbers mean? Oh, is the island real? All that stuff, which at the end of the day is ultimately secondary to the story that they're telling. So, and also the fact that this episode was really just a setup episode, but probably the best setup episode that we've had so far this season. Like I said, we're officially, I'd say, done with the first third of the season, and now we're really going to get into, as one would like to say, the meat and potatoes of the season, now that both groups of survivors are officially unified and together, so now let's get to it. The main reason for why I believe everybody is having podcasts. A lot of people already got on, immediately released their reactions to it. So
I released the video, just
okay,
quick, get in the algorithm.
But you were yes, indeed. But you were smart about it, honestly. I am not smart. I always wait because I'm not algorithm oriented. I like having discussions with people, being like, oh, but what does this really mean? What's the deeper meaning behind this? And it's ultimately why I'll never get as many views as the rest of the YouTubers. But you know what? I don't care because I don't do this for views. So like I was saying at the top, Marvel, the machine that will never stop until it just breaks down, but I don't even know if it's ever going to break down. Again,
it'll just start up again.
True. Again, for the second time too,
yeah.
Because they realized that what they were doing post-COVID immediately was not working with the just constant stream churn out. I believe only 2 of their movies of the 8 or 9 that they released in those first 2 years were actually financially profitable. So they took a step back. They only released one movie last year, Deadpool and Wolverine, which they knew was going to be a surefire hit. Of course, now we don't even know what Ryan Reynolds' future in the MCU is now, thanks to this whole stupid Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively nonsense that he's gotten himself involved in. Which I'm like, oh, so this is shaping up to be another Johnny Depp Amber Heard situation. This is hilarious. You guys are all fools, and you deserve all of this. And obviously, again, going off of the big announcement last year at Comic-Con, the fact that that Kang Dynasty would no longer be happening, that it would be retrofitted into Avengers Doomsday, which would be the new build-up to Secret Wars, the fact that they were bringing back the Russo brothers, the fact that Doomsday and Secret Wars were essentially going to function as the next Infinity War and Endgame. The big revelation that Robert Downey Jr. was returning as Doctor Doom. So tying into the multiverse, being like, oh, so this Doctor Doom is going to be a variant of Tony Stark, ultimately. Basically that, going in line with everything that they set up so far with the multiverse. But this past Tuesday, we got our first, I guess, build towards Avengers Doomsday. And it's funny because I don't remember them doing anything like this for Avengers Infinity War. I think by that point, it was just a matter of, because that was like the first, yeah, okay, we'd already had that kind of level of experience. Like, okay, every time we get an Avengers movie, it's going to feature like a lot of the characters who have been built up to this point. And I guess by comparison to now, it's still crazy to say, because I still remember thinking at the time, oh man, that's a lot of characters that they're going to be able to put in that one movie. And now it's like they keep upping the amount of characters that they're able to squeeze into one of these movies. And, because at the time it was like, okay, it's just all the Avengers that we've got to know at this point and the Guardians of the Galaxy,
Yeah, I think that was the big thing. Like, oh yeah, the Guardians are also
right.
going
The
to be
Guardians are also,
that's going to be the big crossover.
It was the merging of the Earth and the cosmic spaces, which up until that point in Marvel had been pretty much separated. Now we're operating on a whole different plane. Now Earth, cosmic, it's all like uniform at this point. Now it's just like all like multiversal level stuff. So what Marvel's latest marketing gimmick is that they set up a 5.5 hour long stream where they started with a chair and it had Chris Hemsworth's name on it. And you're like, okay. And then after, I don't know what the wait was in between.
It was every 12 minutes or so. It wasn't super consistent. Some was 13 minutes, some was 11 minutes. I'm like,
okay,
come on, guys, get it together.
Okay. So about every 11 to 13 minutes, they would pull the chair back and reveal another name until we had about, I would say, if I'm counting properly, 27 names.
Which I was like, oh, wait, that's it?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And the fact that that's everybody's reaction, that we've got to know this. The first 27 names for the cast of Avengers Doomsday, which is set to be released in a year from now. We still have to get through Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four this year, but and then another untitled Marvel movie that's set to be released in February of 2026, which we don't know what that's going to be. There are some theories. I was theorizing that it was going to be either Shang-Chi 2 or Doctor Strange 3. Some people were saying there's no way it could be Shang-Chi 2, but it might be Doctor Strange 3. I'm not sure yet, but regardless, Avengers Doomsday after Fantastic Four will be the next big Marvel movie event, and we have our first 27 names, so we're going to run through them. You already released the video basically breaking down your anticipation as far as each character, so I guess this is kind of going to be my chance to throw it in. I guess kind of my big surprise here was how few, quote-unquote, true Avengers there are in this movie. So I'm like, oh, so, okay, so are they even going to bother with building up a new Avengers team? It almost seems that they've given up on that, because they've been talking about like putting together a new Avengers team, blah, 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 blah. That was originally supposed to be a point in Brave New World, and then that got reshuffled out through the infinite amount of reshoots that crippled that movie.
They're kind of touching that in Thunderbolts. Like there's a court hearing, like, hey, the Avengers are gone. Who's going to save us? Hey, this is Sentry. He's definitely not going to go bad.
He's definitely not going to go bad. Nothing could possibly go wrong there for anybody has any knowledge of the Sentry in the comics. So I guess the big thing is, again, breaking it, like you were saying, breaking it down group by group. We have the Fantastic Four. We have all the Thunderbolts. Also, Marvel doing what they always do and infamously spoiling their movies that have yet to come out by revealing, oh, all these cast members, they're all going to be in the next movie. So you don't have to worry at all about them dying in this one movie.
Except Taskmaster. And they're even like fluffing some marketing. They put a TV spot out and you compare it with something from a trailer. Taskmaster is one and not in one and not in the other. It's like two. So like, okay, you're just putting in fake shots.
Yes.
Like,
yep.
Like they've done this before.
They've done this so many times over the years. I've lost track. The infamous shot of Hulk running with the army through the forest in Infinity War, a shot that was not in the movie, and who knows if that was even real. But so I guess we should run through it. Again, we don't really need to talk too much about Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom. That's not a surprise. That was announced last year. We knew that was going to happen. I guess what my interest will be is what his actual role in the movie will be, whether he does serve as like a Thanos, kind of as a Thanos figure, because what's interesting about Infinity War is how separated from the majority of the cast Thanos was for that movie. You know, outside of the opening scene where he destroyed Thor's ship and then the end fight where he had the fight with the Avengers on Titan and in Wakanda, he's pretty much separated from the characters for the majority of that movie and is on his own. So I wonder if they're going to do something similar with that, like with Doctor Doom in this movie, before we end up having Secret Wars where we're on Battle World and we have him ruling over everything. So
what's Doom's faceless army? Because every Avengers movie has their faceless army. Does that have like robots or something?
So yeah, the Doombots, the robots, essentially. Yeah. But I guess what's kind of interesting about Doomsday, or sorry, not Doomsday, Secret Wars, is that Doom doesn't really have an army, quote unquote. But we'll get into that because we're going to touch on the concept art that was leaked at the end, which again, people theorize that was Doomsday. Now with this cast, it has all but been confirmed that that it's going to be Secret Wars. So let's run through this cast. So for me, the biggest, so we, again, our returning Avengers phases, you could say, which that being Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson, Captain America, Chris Hemsworth as Thor, Letitia Wright as Shuri Black Panther, Simu Liu as Shang-Chi, and I guess you could throw Winston Duke, Danny Ramirez as Joaquin Torres, the new Falcon, and I guess you could throw Winston Duke and Tena Huerta into that as well. Also, Paul Rudd as Scott Lang, Ant-Man. So those are really kind of the only like returning old school Marvel faces that have been around since the first three faces. I'm going to touch on Loki in a bit because he kind of, with everything that's happened to him post Endgame, he kind of is going to serve a very interesting part here. But so the returning faces here as well. I don't know. You give me your thoughts first, because I'm still like kind of trying to figure it out, because I'm conflicted to say the least.
I think, yeah, like you said, there's only a few old OG names. Like there's no Mark Ruffalo, no Jeremy
exactly.
Renner,
yeah, that's the biggest thing. Is it's like all of like there's a lot more surviving OG members than this. You know, Benedict Cumberbatch, Doctor Strange, Tom Holland, Mark Ruffalo, Brie Larson, Jeremy Renner. A lot of people survived from the OG after Endgame. You know, the Guardians notwithstanding, because again, that's kind of Gunn's whole thing, and that
they're retired.
Yeah, they're retired essentially. So, you know, Elizabeth Olsen, as of right now, is still dead.
Yep.
I think they're saving her until afterwards for the Mute Saga. But other than that, yeah, majority of the OGs are still alive. So I'm like, I can't imagine that they're going to save them all for Endgame. Also, again, Chris Pratt, Star-Lord, who not only, you know, were they hinting that he would be back solo out of all the survivors, but also for anybody who's read the 2015 Secret Wars comic line that they are basing it on, he plays a pretty important part in that storyline. So that one as well, I'm like, okay, like even if they're just like saving him for like a smaller part in this one, you know, also again, the fact that as big and vast as Infinity War was, not every cast member was in it. Famously, Jeremy Renner and Paul Rudd were not in that movie. Also, Brie Larson had not been introduced yet, as Captain Marvel wasn't released until after Infinity War. So I'm not
I mean, Namor is the biggest surprise. Like, oh shit, he's actually going to return. Like, I thought we didn't see enough of him in Wakanda Forever.
Not only just that, well, see, that's the thing. See, of all the returning names from, I guess, like kind of the OG phases, what was surprising to me, his was the least surprising, mostly because for anybody who's read the comics, Namor, I know that what Marvel is notorious for taking very famous Marvel comic books and making them one-off villains. Namor is not a guy you do that with, because Namor is never, and I think I talked about this 2 or 3 years ago when I talked about when I reviewed Wakanda Forever, which is that Namor is a character where, again, he's not quite a bad guy. He's one of those instances where he's only going to do what he thinks is best for his nation and for himself. He's not a good guy. He's not a bad guy. He's allied with the Fantastic Four, and he's been both part of the Illuminati and a part of Norman Osborn's Dark Avengers. He's been on every side you could possibly think of. He's been in every variation possible, and also does end up playing a part in Secret Wars as well. So where he has to team up with
that's just my lack of knowledge.
So that's kind of the only surprising thing. Some of these other names like Danny Ramirez, I'm like, okay, like we saw him in Falcon and Winter Soldier. He's Sam's new Sam essentially. And I'm like, all right.
Do we need 2 Falcons flying about? Like,
my thought process on that is I'm like, okay, he's just going to die in order to give Sam more character motivation to hate Doom. That's my only assumption as far as why he's there, you know? And I guess kind of with Winston Duke, as far as why they're highlighting him, I'm like, okay, why him? And like, where's Okoye, you know? Because famously, again, that was another big thing, is that when they brought back a majority of the Black Panther alumni for Infinity War, with the exceptions of Angela Bassett and Lupita Nyong'o. For the most part, everybody else from the Black Panther cast was in Infinity War, the major players. I'm like, no Okoye, no, why Winston Duke, I guess, is kind of my question there. And then as far as Hemsworth and Rudd, I'm like, okay, that's cool, but like, if you're going to bring back those OGs, I'm like, no Mark Ruffalo, no Jeremy Renner, like no Tom Holland. Like, I guess kind of what's the importance of those two? I'm assuming Ant-Man because the quantum realm you will assume will play, unfortunately for better or for worse, play some importance in terms of Doom's final endgame plan, which is of course to create an incursion between worlds in order to create Battle World from which he rules over. As they stated, the quantum realm is kind of the space in between worlds. That's also where it's been hinted at that the TVA headquarters is located as well, which also ties us into Loki. And then Chris Hemsworth, Love and Thunder didn't really leave us with a lot left afterwards. After some pretty awesome character development that he went through between Ragnarok and Endgame. And then Love and Thunder just comes in and is like, oh, we're back to just doing jokes every 5 minutes. And like, I don't hate Love and Thunder as much as everybody else does, but yeah, I can definitely understand if you were a big Thor fan and then coming out of that movie being like, what the hell?
See, I don't think there were many Thor fans before Ragnarok and the two Avengers, and then now they see, okay, Thor, he's proper like Asgardian type,
right?
He's back to that, and Love and Thunder. So hopefully back with the Russos, they can do some cool stuff with him. I don't know what role he plays in the storyline, but
I guess just my confusion being that Thor hasn't been on Earth by this point since Endgame. In the kind of struggle that leads up to the events of Secret Wars on Battleworld, Thor does not really play a part. You don't really see him again until Battleworld until Doom is formed Battleworld. So again, it's kind of my question with these OG Avengers, where I question their involvement because they're not forming the new Avengers, at least not yet, and Thor's off world, and they're bringing in it's like they're picking and choosing certain of the OGs and then just throwing in like random side characters. So like that. So I have a lot of confusion there, And again, the thing that also should be stated is that this will not be the only casting announcement that we get for Doomsday specifically. They're going to announce more cast members in July at Comic-Con. It's just a matter of who else will be added, because they did this with Infinity War, where when they released, I think they did something at Comic-Con, and then they did another thing at D23 when they fully officially released the trailer that year. I think this was
Comic-Con they showed the trailer at Comic-Con, right? And then someone filmed it.
Yes. It was the leaked trailer.
Yeah,
and then
there's a famous description. Thanos throws a moon at Tony Stark.
And then that's what it was. And then they released the full trailer. See, your memory is so much better than me. This is why I need you for this. And then
these are pivotal moments in my teenage.
That's understandable. Yeah, that's probably I was already a little bit older by that point. I was already 20 when all this was happening, so my memory was already starting to go. But and then they released a full trailer later on that year, and that's when they released like the full cast list. And that while not every cast member was able to be at D23, they were basically able to reveal that there were, this is going to be the cast that we have. And so those are kind of, I guess, primarily the returning faces, and really the only other MCU legacy figure that we have before we kind of get into the new guys, the Thunderbolts, the Fantastic Four, and for us, I think the thing that got everybody excited, the OG early 2000s X-Men, but also a little bit worrisome, and I'll get into that. Loki as well, Tom Hiddleston. He's officially coming back. Of course, once again, more infamous MCU line where he said Loki season 2 was his last time playing Loki, but he didn't actually say that, which is funny. He's like, what did he say? He's like, it's the end of like an 11 or a 10 or 11 year journey in my
end
arc.
Of a journey in the arc. And, but he never said I'm done. So
no, you're right, and that's what we got to pay attention to, because again, he got the part of Loki in like 2009, 2010 when they were filming it. He makes his debut as Loki in the first Thor in 2011, and then Loki season 2 is 2 years ago, fall of 2023. So yeah, if you count when we first see him on the screen, that's about 12 years that he's been playing Loki, which is insane. The fact of how long these guys have been playing these characters, especially the ones that have been around since the beginning, since phase 1. And here we are all these years later. And it is very crucial. Loki season 2, I think, is not only the most crucial, and really the entire show of Loki, but Loki season 2 specifically is not only the most important, I would say, MCU story post Endgame, it's the most important story building up to Secret Wars, because not only is that show kind of our introduction to the multiverse and how it works, it's also kind of setting us up for, again, I'm spoiling a lot for people who have not read the Secret Wars 2015 comic arc, which again is what they are adapting for their Secret Wars movie that's being released in 2 years. But for people who have read it and understand the importance not only of Loki, but of shows like What If, where even though the individual things that we're seeing in What If may not necessarily be important, the fact that we're being introduced to figures and concepts in that show and in this universe that help to fill out and establish the story for Secret Wars, the fact that we get the Watcher and the Beyonders and, Eternity, which was introduced in Love and Thunder as well, the fact that we're getting these very, very high concept characters that are all going to play a crucial part in Secret Wars. What they're doing with Loki by making him essentially the god of stories, and making him essentially like the new center figure of the multiverse, forming Yggdrasil as well, kind of, in order to, in fashioning the multiverse after Yggdrasil. Excuse me. What they're doing is they're slotting him in for Molecule Man, is what they're doing, where essentially what we get in the beginning of Secret Wars, the comic, and I don't know if we're doing this exactly, is Doom, in order to try and prevent more incursions from occurring across the multiverse, teams up with Doctor Strange and the Molecule Man, who is this other figure that has not been seen so far in the Marvel Cinematic Universe up to this point. He's kind of like this omnipotent, all-consuming figure. What happens is that they essentially steal the power of the Watchers, and with that power, Doom is able to, essentially, when the incursion happens between Earth 616, the Prime Marvel Universe, and Earth 1610, the Ultimate Marvel Universe, which was the Marvel run that occurred in the early 2000s that authors like Brian Michael Bendis were heavily involved in as well, kind of introducing that new, like, kind of gritty Marvel look that a lot of the early MCU movies adapted as well. They are also famously the ones that introduced the Black Nick Fury that was modeled after Samuel L. Jackson. That was started in the Ultimate comic book line. So you have the smashing together of those two universes to create the incursion, but then with the power of the Watchers funneled through the Molecule Man, it's very hokey, timey-wimey. Doom is essentially able to create this new merge of the two worlds known as Battle World, which has certain facets that are similar to previous worlds, but for the most part, it's completely new. And I don't know if they're going to do it exactly like it is in the comics, but I mean, you're gonna read the comic, you ordered it, so when you do,
that was a lot. I'm gonna have to see it on the page.
It's a lot in order to explain it. But again, visually, once you see the visuals, it starts to back it up a little bit more. So
will the VFX workers have to work all day, all night?
Oh God, I feel for these VFX workers. That's all I gotta say. I really, really do. I really, really
started
do.
shooting yet. It releases in like 13 months. So.
Well, look, we've already got.
You have to get a trailer out.
Hey! Remember, they have something that they didn't have 5-6 years ago.
Oh yes, that two-letter
infamous 2-letter word that is slowly destroying humanity one day at a time, but we're not going to focus on that. All right, so let's get to our next group. I feel like we don't need to talk too much about the Fantastic Four. I feel like it was kind of like it was kind of obvious that they were going to play a crucial part. Again, similar to how Ragnarok was kind of the kickoff for Infinity War and Endgame. Fantastic Four, even though we had Black Panther in between Ragnarok and Infinity War, is kind of like a placeholder. Ragnarok really is the thing that leads directly into Infinity War, because that's the one that has, Asgard blowing up. It's the one that sets them up for Infinity War when they're on the ship, when they're about to be attacked by Thanos. But, so that's exactly what's going to happen. We already know a lot about Fantastic Four. We know it's going to be a multiversal story. We know that this group of Fantastic Four, even though they're on a parallel Earth, they were established to have come from the original Earth 616. In this movie, Fantastic Four First Steps will end with them making their way back to the Prime MCU timeline in order to establish them as the main MCU Fantastic Four. Even though, again, we had John Krasinski in Multiverse of Madness, we had Chris Evans in Deadpool and Wolverine. This iteration of the Fantastic Four, played by Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Joseph Quinn, and Eben Moss-Backrack, will be our mainstay Fantastic Four going forward. I'm also not at all worried about them not surviving, about this being the only time that we see the four of them as well. So again, I feel like there's not too much that we have to add. Again, they are the newest iterations. They are the new additions. So
I'm just curious to see how their movie ends up. Like, do they lose and do they have to escape, or do they get put on 616 like not out of their control, or just like that? So especially we know enough, but we don't know everything.
Yes, well, especially too, going back to your point as well, the fact that, again, they've got how they utilize these massive Marvel Comics villains as one-off villains, where we're finally getting Galactus in his true full form in this movie. He's the main big bad. We're getting a litany of Fantastic Four villains as well. But the fact that Galactus is and Silver Surfer, played by Julia Garner and Ralph Ineson, respectively, in the movie, are going to be the one-off villains in order to make way for Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom, who is the Thanos, overhanging overall. So, like I said, that's more so, again, dependent on Fantastic Four. It's the movie that we know the least about because, again, it's an entirely new team, entirely new set of characters, entirely new set of actors that we haven't seen in the MCU up until this point.
Although I did see a report that Chris Evans is in it.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe he's that universe's Captain America as well.
That would be interesting.
I saw one single report, and just a theory popped up.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's true.
Okay. Well, again, the rumor heavily is that Chris Evans, while he may not be in Doomsday, that he will be back as some evil variant of Captain America in Avengers: Secret Wars. So
I would be surprised if he wasn't.
Food for thought. Put a pin in it for future reference. He already said that like he'd be willing. He's already proven that he's willing to come back in some variantal form. He already did it as Johnny in Deadpool Wolverine. So, the initial Human Torch. He's talked as well for years about the fact that he had wished that he could have come back as Johnny Storm, since he felt like, unlike Captain America, that character or that iteration of that character was never given his due. So it could be pretty cool. Oh man, I'm just thinking of like a universe where you have, and I know they're around the same age, but where you have like John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic and Chris Evans as Human Torch. Because I've said this before, that I don't have that many problems with those mid-2000s Fantastic Four movies. My only problem is the castings of Mr. Fantastic and Doctor Doom in those movies. Like with Ian Gruffin and Julian McMahon, I'm like, or whatever. But Jessica Alba, Michael Chiklis, and Chris Evans, I've always said are like really, really inspired castings, really elevate those movies from complete and utter schlock. Also, I will be mad if we do not get the evil version of Reed Richards, played by Miles Teller, also known as.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. Like this casting that no one like a movie that everyone hates, and then everyone's like, "Hey, make him the maker." Like,
such is the power of the multiverse. Yeah. That is all I'm gonna say. All right, let's get into kind of the two big ones. Also, I forgot to say, we didn't talk too much about Letitia Wright and Simu Liu, but I'm like, look, we didn't get to spend that much time with these characters. One only got one mediocre movie. One got kind of the thankless job of continuing a job that was continued by a much, kind of this legacy actor that unfortunately, passed in this very tragic way. So, again, they're just going to be more people to kind of fill out the cast. I do find it funny, though, that they put those two in, but they very purposely left out Tatiana Maslany, which I think is funny. Like, do we think we're gonna get She-Hulk at all after how badly that show was received? Or
well, she was in the concept art, so
right. That's what leads me to assume that she will be.
All I have to say. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah, we will see. All right, so the next two big one, the Thunderbolts, and basically Marvel essentially spoiling all of Thunderbolts by saying that, with the exception of Taskmaster, who everybody had pretty much figured out was not making it through the whole movie, the entirety of the cast, not just the entirety of the cast, but the villain of the movie will also be in Secret Wars. Sebastian Stan is Bucky. Florence Pugh is Yelena Belova. Wyatt Russell is John Walker. Dave Harbour is Alexei Shostakov, the Red Guardian. Hannah John Kamen is the Ghost. And Lewis Pullman as Bob Reynolds, the Sentry, will all be in Doomsday. So what do you... I have so many different theories here where I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, are we supposed to believe that the Thunderbolts and that's actually going to be the new team of Avengers? These Jokers right here. Two discount Captain Americas. The discount.
You could argue three with Bucky.
Yeah, with Bucky. But Bucky, I think, has made a little bit of an identity of himself.
He's his own guy.
Bucky's like, I'm still trying to compensate for the fact that I didn't get that Sam got the shield instead of me. And I'm still trying to figure out what the hell my role in this universe is going forward now. A chick who walks through walls, that's not Elliot Page, the discount Black Widow, and the Sentry, who, in fairness, if they do with Sentry what they've done in the comics, the Sentry is one of the top 3 or 4 strongest characters in the entire MCU after Doctor Doom, Thanos, the Hulk. Sentry is up there. So in terms of power levels, he does stand a decent chance against Doom, especially if he proves to be the multiversal level threat that they've been hinting that he's going to be with the post-credit scene of Thunderbolts when that comes out. But I still hesitate to wonder, what the hell are any of these Jokers going to be able to do against God-level Doom, That'd be to me, that's the equivalent of the first Suicide Squad, the David Ayer one, where, forget all the rest of the bullshit with that movie, the ultimate flaw of that movie is you're sending these Jokers up against the Enchantress. That's a Justice League-level villain there, what are these guys going to do? Shoot a gun, throw something at them? I guess that's kind of my question there. What are we doing with these guys here?
Yeah, so from the trailers, we can deduce that the Thunderbolts, they go on their road trip excursion for most of the movie, and then eventually they go back to New York and Sentry is, and I know there's I don't know much about Sentry, but know that he's like the Sentry and he's the Void.
Yes, it's a split personality thing. Yeah, the Sentry formula that Bob Reynolds worked on and injected into himself. It gives him the powers of the Sentry, which again are basically, for lack of a better word, I don't know. It's weird. For a longest time, I thought it was like Superman's powers essentially, but like there's more to it as well. Invulnerability and flight, obviously, and super strength are involved, but now also he can like turn people into like Black Shadow forms essentially. But and so I'm guessing that ties into the whole Void, which again, to my knowledge, is just this alternate, like, kind of dark personality. So essentially what it would be is if it's where all of a sudden out of nowhere Superman turned into Homelander, but it was still Superman. Is essentially kind of like what the Void is within the Sentry persona.
So I take it that they go into the Void and they come out of the Void and Doomsday has started somehow. So they go like directly into that. That's our first like.
So that's gonna. So it's like the pocket dimension almost, where they're able to like wait it out after the incursion has happened, is what you're saying.
Maybe. I don't know. I think they go into the Void, they come out of the Void. Oh shit, something has gone really wrong. Doomsday has started.
Oh wait, so you think Thunderbolts ends with them getting sucked into the Void, and then they come out at the beginning of Doomsday? You're saying that doesn't happen?
Well, you see them walking into the Void, and then they do their big third act climax fight.
That's right.
And then then they deal with it. They maybe don't kill him. They talk him down or whatever.
Right.
And then they come out. Everyone's friends. And oh shit.
Well, I mean, they pretty
Robert
much
Downey Jr.
Right. Well, they pretty much
maybe not Downey Jr., but something.
Yeah. Got it. Okay, that makes sense. So they pretty much did spoil that. The movie ends with Yelena talking down Bob and basically, turning him from the Void back into the Sentry.
That's what I'm guessing.
Okay,
I haven't seen it. But
that does make sense. That does make sense. Yeah, where again the post-credit scene is then like maybe coming out of the Void and it's like Doomsday. Because I think they have rumored that we pretty much can guarantee that Downey Jr. will cameo in Fantastic Four, but I think there was a rumor that he was going to be in Thunderbolts as well. So that would stand to reason as well.
If not him, then someone in the Doomsday cast that isn't in the Thunderbolts cast in the post-credit scene.
Yes,
maybe.
Yes, exactly. Like so I don't know, but we'll see. But obviously, again, the big one. The one that caused everybody to really tune in and lose their shit. The announcement of the early 2000s X-Men. So again, we've already seen a couple of them. We saw Patrick Stewart back in Multiverse of Madness. We saw Hugh Jackman back in Deadpool and Wolverine. We saw what's it called? We saw Beast, Kelsey Grammer at the end in the post-credit scene for the Marvel. So this is something that they've been hinting at for quite a while, that they've been building up for quite a while. Obviously, also the inclusion of Channing Tatum as Gambit from his infamously canceled solo Gambit movie that was supposed to happen before Disney bought Fox. I don't remember if that one was canceled before the merger was announced or what, but
it was pushed like 5 years.
Yes,
like sequentially. Like,
yep.
Okay, we're delaying it. Director's been fired. Okay, we
yep.
Need
so. But what we have is, so again, no Hugh Jackman, and also famously a couple of omissions. No Famke Janssen as Jean Grey, no Halle Berry as Storm, no Anna Paquin as Rogue. But what this tells me with these casting announcements, and I should go through them real quick. We have Patrick Stewart as Professor X, Ian McKellen as Magneto, Kelsey Grammer as Beast, James Marsden as Cyclops, Channing Tatum as Gambit was announced as coming back. I'm like, okay, so perhaps they're going to do it maybe a little bit more in line with X-Men 97, where Gambit's a part of the team now. Rebecca Romijn as Mystique, and for me, this was the part where I fist pumped hard. My favorite X-Men, the X-Men who, in my opinion, has never gotten his just desserts, as hard as Cody Smith-McPhee tried in the the two X-Men prequels that he was in, Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix. Alan Cumming as Nightcrawler, I lost my mind. I lost my mind at that. X2 is considered to be the best X-Men movie and the best of the original trilogy of X-Men movies in the early 2000s for a reason. And Alan Cumming and his portrayal as Nightcrawler in those movies is such a large part of it. Nightcrawler has been my favorite X-Men for the longest time. It always kills me that there was a long time in the mainstream X-Men universe where he wasn't considered a part of the team. He famously did not come back for X3 because he did not want to put on the blue makeup ever again. And so they went with Kelsey Grammer as Beast, another very inspired casting choice as well. Needless to say, I'm very excited. We're getting all my blue X-Men in one movie. I love the blue X-Men. They're always my favorite ones. Yeah, so what this confirms to me is that Doomsday and kind of the incursion level event that's going to set up for Battleworld, essentially, is rather than Earth 616 and 1610, the regular and Ultimate Marvel universes, it's going to be 616, the Prime Marvel universe, which the Fantastic Four will be on by the time that ends. And Earth, I don't remember what designation they gave the Fox X-Men universe to Deadpool Wolverine, 10005, something like that. The Fox X-Men universe. Those are going to be the two universes that smash together in order to create Battleworld.
And you think that's the same one that the Marvels ended up winning?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I do.
That
Yes.
would make sense.
Yes. Because, okay, you can make the argument, but it looks different because of CGI. I'm like, it's the same actor. It's the same actor, and the Professor X on that universe is still alive. It's not the universe from Multiverse of Madness that Wanda destroyed because that Professor X is dead. So, yeah.
The only question remains, which of the X-Men timelines is this? Because we know how confusing those guys. You had the 2000s one, then they started with First Class, which was kind of like a reboot, and then it ties in with Days of Future Past, and then that timeline gets reset. So,
well, if anything, too, you can make the argument that this movie could help maybe polish off a little bit of the confusion, and obviously another rumor is that, the Doctor Doom is from the X-Men Days of Future Past timeline, and that, again, after the timeline was fixed in that universe, we never saw that future iteration of X-Men ever again, because we just went back and kept telling more stories with McAvoy and Fassbender and the rest of the prequels, So,
and Logan is its own thing.
And Logan is its own thing, exactly.
They mentioned the first X-Men movie, but that could be something, but yeah.
Right.
I think we just have to, we can speculate all we want until we see a trailer or something,
right.
or reports that yeah.
Exactly. So I guess kind of the last couple questions that I have is who that they have not announced yet do you think is going to be in this movie? Because famously Benedict Cumberbatch said he first said that he was not going to be in Doomsday, but that he would be in Secret Wars, and then he switched it last minute. Again, knowing what I know based off of Secret Wars, the fact that Doctor Strange not only helps Doom with the incursion, but the fact that with how Multiverse of Madness ended, him going into the Dark Dimension with Clea, that leads me to assume that he is not going to be in Doomsday, that Doctor Strange 3 will be one of the Marvel movies released in between Doomsday, either before Doomsday, that'll be in the February slot of 2026.
Well, they gotta hurry up with that one.
Or it'll be filmed and released in between Doomsday and Secret Wars. That's what it leads me to assume. And well, that's the thing. They could also be secretly filming it as well. And, they could be filming it simultaneously. Because remember, they had to use a stand-in with Doctor Strange in Infinity War as well because he was off filming something else. And then they eventually came in and did reshoots with him. So, never underestimate the power of Marvel in terms of CGIing and putting other people in. Remember, the Illuminati didn't film a single one of those sequences together. So, yeah, that leads me to assume that he will not be in Doomsday, but knowing that his crucially important part that he plays in the Secret Wars storyline, that he will be in Secret Wars. Like I said, Tom Holland is Spider-Man. Mark Ruffalo was the Hulk. Jeremy Renner is Hawkeye. Charlie Cox also was Daredevil. Ryan Reynolds is Deadpool. Hugh Jackman is Wolverine. The other two Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. All those guys. There's a lot of people that we still do not know are going to be not only just in this movie, but also in Doomsday as well. So who do you think they have yet to announce for this movie?
I think for Doomsday, it's got to be like some more X-Men, like Storm and Jean. Like it feels like very specific that you had these, was it 5 X-Men and Gambit?
6, just about, yeah.
6, yeah, just about, without having like key pivotal members of the of the core 2000s cast. Like you get Alan Cumming, which is awesome, but
but he was only a one-off.
You don't get Storm and Jean, which is strange. Ghost Rider, Nick Cage. I think they can get that done for maybe for Secret Wars. But yeah, I think like we talked about Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Star-Lord, these essential guys.
Well, it's funny because remember we were talking about Miles Teller as Evil Reed Richards, the Maker as well. Another casting that I'm hoping happens, and I don't know if they'll have Ruffalo do this or what, is famously, the future version of the Hulk, who then becomes like this scheming mastermind, Eric Bana from the early 2000s. Or this would be the funniest. This will never happen. It would be the funniest thing ever if they brought Edward Norton back. But again, that'll never happen.
Is that Maestro?
As the Maestro,
Hulk?
exactly. Yeah. As the Maestro Hulk, who is an ally of Doom as well. And knowing what I know about Secret Wars, I literally just reread it like last week, and all these casts that are going in, all of Doom's barons, some of Doom's barons, the rulers of his fiefdom, his kingdom, once he forms Battleworld. Strange is his number 2. He's married Susan, and he basically has adopted Franklin and Valeria as being his children. Johnny Storm is literally the son. Ben Grimm is literally a giant and is basically forming this thing called the Wall. He has some of his barons, the rulers of his fiefdom, the Maestro Hulk, Apocalypse, Mr. Sinister. So that leads me to assume, oh my God, will Oscar Isaac come back as Apocalypse before he comes back as Moon Knight? And will we finally get John Hamm as Mr. Sinister, a cast that we were supposed to get years ago in New Mutants when that was supposed to be the Fox
I think they
verse.
have to save something for
the
mutant saga.
for a Secret Wars for the Mutant Saga. But I'm saying it's all of these are now a possibility, which is like, again, it's very few times that I'm able to get excited as a comic book nerd because Marvel's done what they always do, which is they pull bits and pieces that they like from the comics. But then for the most part, they mostly do their own thing. But knowing what I know about the comics and the fact that this is the first time where I'm actually aware of a comic storyline before it happens, because I think the only comic book storyline that I was familiar with Marvel-wise before I watched it was Secret Invasion, because I read Civil War after I saw Civil War the movie. I read Age of Ultron after I saw Age of Ultron the movie. I read Infinity Gauntlet and Infinity War after Infinity War and Endgame came out. So all these big Marvel storylines I read after I'd already seen them in big screen form, except for Secret Invasion, and then I saw how they botched that for the TV show. It was just so unbelievable. Like, wow, you literally only took the name, and the rest is just like it's just a Nick Fury solo story. Okay. Also, that's the other thing too. No Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury, which I think is interesting as well. I'm assuming that he will play a part as well. Could we also potentially finally see the end of Nick Fury as well? Also for me, but yeah, the fact that I not only know the storyline of Secret Wars, but the fact that I think it might be my favorite Marvel Comics run. Like, I'm thinking hard. There's a lot that I do like. I still have yet to read the Dark Avengers storyline, but Secret Wars is probably my favorite Marvel comic run. So the fact that they're doing it, the fact that they've been building up to it this long, it's been very, very messy. Again, only by the time the Secret Wars comes out, it'll have only been 6 years as opposed to the 10 years that Marvel took to build up to Infinity War and Endgame. So it's going to be very messy, but if they can get even, like, I'd say halfway there, I think that it'll be good. Plus, again, the fact that they're modeling the Infinity War Endgame run times where Doomsday is set to be about 2 hours and 40 minutes, and Secret Wars will be the full 3 hours. So
yeah, and we suspect that it will be like divided into teams, and then the new quota of Battle World is established, and then the first act of Secret Wars is kind of dealing with that new normal, and then that leads into a big fight, whatever.
Yes, the way that the Thanos snap ended Infinity War, the incursion, the smashing together of the two universes will end Doomsday. And so that's what we will be in store for. And just as well with the X-Men, a couple things also to throw out there. Yes, you're right. They will definitely probably announce Famke Janssen and Halle Berry. Not sure about Anna Paquin, though it would be cool. It would also be cool if we saw Rogue finally getting to be, cool by taking Captain Marvel's powers. That would be just so awesome for so many different reasons. Also, if we were to get, again, another part of, another reason why I was looking forward to James Marsden specifically of all the X-Men is the fact that, in the Secret Wars comic line, Cyclops becomes the new Phoenix and is one of the survivors. Because basically Cyclops becomes the new Phoenix by absorbing the Phoenix Force. And
okay, you've said like 8 ridiculous things about this storyline so far, and then you say that Cyclops becomes the Phoenix.
That's the most ridiculous. I love it. I can't wait to see your reaction to reading Secret Wars.
Faster from England.
I can't wait to see your reaction to Secret Wars. I feel like you're gonna be texting me every time you finish an issue, being like, "What the hell am I reading? What is going on?" Because you have like 20 or 30 heroes that are introduced in the first issue, and then they all get killed when the incursion happens. Like, they all die. What's it called? So there's that. So you have Cyclops absorbing the Phoenix Force and becoming a part of the group of survivors that survived the incursion, along with Reed Richards, Black Panther, Namor, Thanos, Star-Lord, Captain Marvel, both Spider-Man, Peter Parker, and Miles Morales, Jane Foster as Thor, and I think that's it. And then what else? The other thing also is this will be kind of the final goodbye, the end to the early 2000s iteration of Fox X-Men, because once Secret Wars concludes and Marvel's next saga will be the Mutant Saga, which is when they will officially recast. They will have, in whatever new universe is formed in the aftermath of the Avengers defeating Doom and Battleworld becoming whatever the new Earth Prime is going to be. We will have a new team of X-Men that will be probably, again, Sadie Sink, Glenn Powell as well. We also did talk about as well the fact that Spider-Man 4, directed by Destin Daniel Cretton, which will also be co-starring Sadie Sink as well, rumored to be either a new version of Mary Jane, Gwen Stacy, or perhaps a new version of Jean Grey will be the next movie release after Doomsday, which could potentially also be the reason why Tom Holland might not be in Doomsday as well. The fact that
He's
with
a
that,
busy man. I
he is
see
a very
new
busy man.
set photo of him every day, like
Exactly, with the
wearing
Odyssey.
some
He's
armor.
busy making real movies now with Nolan. But just as far as Spider-Man 4 and the role that plays goes, it could be potentially where that movie is like kind of what Ant-Man and the Wasp was, where that was after Infinity War, but it took place before. So it could be one of those things. Also, again, the fact that we have to assume that this next Spider-Man trilogy that they're doing will be a passing of the torch from live-action Peter Parker to live-action Miles Morales, who will not be portrayed by Shamik Moore. In fact, I will be amazed if we even get if Shamik Moore is not recast by the time Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse comes out, if it ever comes out. I think the latest rumors that I heard is that Lord and Miller are now, between the Shamik Moore drama, Lord and Miller being busy filming Project Hail Mary and getting that ready for next year, that Beyond the Spider-Verse, I think they're said that that's not supposed to come out until like 2029 now, which I'm like, oh my God. Like, this
You know what? Just take your time. Just
honestly, I'm with it. I'm
ready.
with it. Get it right. Get
There's
it right.
enough coming out that
Yes, we
I
have
can wait.
plenty of stuff in between. And honestly, if we can get this, like, once we're like past this inundation of superhero movies, where this movie can come out and still be like as fresh and as good and like the capper to that trilogy that we want it to be, I'm all for it. So, yeah. Anything else you want to talk about with these castings? Or no, we're on the wait until Comic Con.
No, I'm sure we're days away from some other big casting. Daredevil is very good so far.
Very good. Only 3 weeks left too. We've got episode 7 this week after that double hitter that we got last week. So
it was a good contrasting double hitter because you had one filler episode which was like a really good self-contained, like just single story, and then you had back into the main. And to think like okay, I can tell that this is from the old storyline where this is the first time he puts on the suit in the whole show.
Yes.
So it was a good moment.
Yeah.
I'll say I think Sadie Sink is Gwen, because
you think she's Gwen?
Yeah, just based on the last 2 Gwens, they were both ginger and she's ginger, so that's my reasoning for it.
Interesting. Got
but
it.
If it's either her or Jean Grey from another universe or something.
Yeah, exactly. What are the odds that Glenn Powell is the new Cyclops by the time we get the rebooted X-Men? I mean, we'll probably be in like the 2030s by that point, so it's not.
I think they're going younger than that for the new team.
Really? So we're talking like we're talking like your age, you think?
Well, maybe a bit old. I'm not that old. I think a bit older. I think somewhere between our ages is what they're aiming for.
Okay, yeah. With
Sadie, Glenn Powell, if he was cast like right now,
right, it would be perfect. But by the time those movies come out, you're right. He'll be a little bit older. I think I think he
should have been Booster Gold, like for DC.
Yeah,
so like that would have been great. But
that would have been.
I think that's too good.
Yeah, that's too. That's one of those castings that's so good that it's like, yeah, that'll never happen now. That's a casting where, again, in the 2000s and early 2010s, when they were just knocking the castings out of the park, that would have been perfect. But now, again, we never get castings that good anymore. So, well. Yeah. All right, that was it. That was our recap of Lost and our reaction to the Avengers Doomsday casting announcements. Be sure to keep tuning in every week for new episodes of Lost. And also, Luke, we recorded, and again, we're starting it, our build-up to Mission Impossible, the final reckoning, our Mission Impossible rewatch series. I am hard at work editing the first entry, but it will be done. It will be released in about a week's time is when I'm planning on putting it out, and I plan on putting out new reactions every week leading up to the final reckoning. So we will be, so that's something to look forward to as well. And again, as always, keep tuning in for more projects down the pipeline, as I am always at work putting together new things as well. And also be sure to check out Luke's channel as well, as he's finally putting out more than just one video a year, as his long past.
It's good. It's good fun.
It is. It's
and
quite
I'm generating
fun.
More ideas for videos.
Exactly. That's the thing. You start one idea and then they just start flowing. The ideas just start flowing. That's how it goes. All right, Luke. And where can they subscribe to your channel?
They can subscribe at Luke Reviews on YouTube. Put out the tier list of my excitement for these characters that we've just been through. Talk about them for a while. Like I think you'll get more out of this than you will out of that. So
I have an idea real quick. I'm gonna throw something your way. It's not quite an idea. It's a little bit of like I really would like to see this, just because it would be so funny. I'm thinking like a reaction. Like basically what you do is you film a reaction to you as you're reading Secret Wars, and then you just like look up and be like, "What the hell is happening?" After every, and that would be incredible.
I'll just show the camera. Like,
yeah, just show the camera like everything's happening. Be like, what is this? Like that would be hilarious.
I might do that and just cut up the best bits. So
it's an idea.
I just need to get a proper doable camera for that.
Yeah.
Because my phone camera is not great, but
Yeah.
I'll figure it out.
Yes, you're quite intelligent that way. I have all the faith in the world in you. And of course, you guys can follow me with everything going on at Movie Nerd Reviews across all platforms, at Official Talkin TV Podcast across all platforms. You guys know the rest. Subscribe, follow us. This episode will be available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts tomorrow. And as always, people, 12 seasons of a short film. Watch more movies and Lost. We'll see you guys next week.